Welcome everybody, Steve here. Well, our mudding is all done, it's all dry, and it's time to start sanding. Now, sanding is probably the most important step of doing your drywall. Now, you can put it on a little thick, and if you sand it off properly, it's going to be perfect. So some of the things you're going to need to get that done, basically, you're going to need a light. I just have a simple trouble light. I've got my round disc here. You can put a pole on there to do the ceilings. I do not use a pole and start sanding the way I go. I want to be able to see what I'm doing. So I get up a little closer, I've got a light, and you'll see in a second when we get started. Make sure you've got I got a new block. Now, these foam blocks here, I've got coarse on one side and a fine on the other. And that will work out perfect for doing all this, and then we use this for the corners as well. So basically, I'm using this for the flats. I'm going to finish it off with a little larger block that I have. And there's so many different styles of foam blocks that you can buy. This one's got a nice little 45, you know. There are certain times when you're doing some fancy stuff that you need to have that, or just to get into a corner. And I think the spongy block is the best thing that's been invented since canned beer. Like seriously, these have really made it a lot easier to do drywall. They've been around forever, but I love them. When it comes to woodworking, they're useless, but for drywall, I love them. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start with the flats first, and then we'll move over and start doing the corners, and then we can finish off with the nails. The nails are the easiest. I like to do the easiest stuff last. So with the light, as soon as you put your light on the side like this, now you can see all the little spots, right, that need to be sanded. My opinion, and it might be different from, you know, everybody else's, but I always start out with a coarse sandpaper. If you start just with like 220 to finish with a 220, you know, you're struggling to get it straight. And, you know, you come this far, it only takes minutes to sand off a little piece like this. Start out with this is a 100 grit. Sometimes I'll even start with an 80 grit. And basically, all you're doing is straightening everything out. And you can see it, you want to make sure your edges are kind of feathered. But you can see, I'm not putting that much pressure on. And once it's all evened out, you see all your sand scratches, you're done. It's that simple. I've got a little bit of a low spot right here. There. That's looking really good. We've got a little bit more work to do over here, but I want to get my mask on. But once that's done, and we're going to feather a little bit more over here, then all we're going to do is just take our block, once again, and just kind of in circular motion. I like to call that polishing. And basically you're just going until the sanding scratches are done. Perfect. That will not be seen when you paint it. That simple. Now if you do find a mark, like let's say you found a little low spot or a gouge or something where you missed putting your mud in, we're not fixing it right now, we're going to fix that after we prime. If that makes any sense, because if we put a little bit of mud on here to do a repair, Unless you really notice that this is completely screwed up, you're gonna do the whole thing, you could go ahead and do that. But if you got a little spot, easier to fix it after we prime. Because if you put mud over top of this right now, this is already sanded. You sand the mud on top, you're gonna be sanding this as well. And there's a chance, let's say there's a little bit more water in, or a little thinner on your mud, it will actually have a little different hardness. So I would not recommend it. You can fix it really easy once it's primed. All right, let me get my mask on. Give this a bit of a sand, excuse me, and then we can keep going with our horizontals, and then we'll hit the corners. One thing that you want to make sure that you don't sand too far and go through to your tape. Once it looks straight, stop. Sandpaper will tell you everything. Now this one here, I try not to put too much pressure on. And if you got good blocks, you gotta watch. Sometimes you get a block that's got maybe a little damage, and you'll see it making marks in your drywall. You want to make sure you get rid of that. Doesn't take very long to do this step. Yeah, that is beautiful. So your edge you should start to see through the edge. You don't want a sharp line. Like let's say, like if you see a line that's straight, you know that that's a fairly sharp line. You don't want that. You want everything to be nice, feathered out, so that you can just start to see through. And then you know that that is perfect. Yeah, you'll never see that. All right, I'm gonna finish this horizontal over here, and then we'll get working on corner. Now I've got this corner kind of half done because I was doing this, which is good. So once your scratches are all gone, it's perfect. Now I just did some filming with my light and it was horrible. So I'm gonna do this over again. Now we're working on the corner here, and let's see where we're at here. I think we should be okay. Maybe we'll go a little bit higher. Now, when I get started with my corner, I want to be on my core side. I usually just kind of come in and I'll feather off the edges. And that's all it is. Just takes that much. As long as your edges are feathered. If you got lots of mud on there, you got to do a little bit more work. Once that's done, I will straighten the very corner with my edge of my sandpaper. And normally what I'll do is I'll just pull down like that till it's straight. I don't want to do any more sanding like that, because if your wall is crooked, this edge will cut into one side or the other, however you're doing it, and make a big mark, and then you may end up having to fill that again. So what I'll do, I'll turn my block where there's no sandpaper, and then finish up over here, like that. Once again, once you see it nice and flat through the light, you're done. And then I just have to polish it, and she's all done. That fast and that easy. Okay, time to start with these screws, where we filled all the dimples. Now you shouldn't be able to see anything once your mud is all dry and you're done. But when we sand it, we want to go just until we start to see it. And I always, once again, I'll always start with a coarse. You know, you just have to give her a couple with them. It takes longer if you start with, or just do it with the fine. I flip it over, now I'm on my fine, and then I just give it a nice light one. Now, you can just start to see the head popping through here. Well, it's not the head of the screw, but where we filled it. You don't want to go any farther than that. Just make sure you're feathered around here. That is perfect. For the ceiling, I am going to use the pulp. You can get up there and do it by hand, but my God, you have to have pretty big shoulders. And even at this, it's still a tough thing to do. Now, there's one thing I can ask of you. When you're doing your, you know, or any room, if you're doing some mudding, spend some time and do a really nice job on your ceiling. Everybody thinks that you can do a quick job because your texture is going to cover it all up. Well, it doesn't. And if you do a nice job, you can look at your ceiling and just have some pride. Just look in your house. And if you see this, the texture, you know, everyone thinks you can cover everything, but you know, your ceiling probably does this. And I don't like that. I take some pride and I take some time and make sure my ceiling's done, and then when it's textured, you can't even tell. It's the same process. There's nothing different. Just harder to sand. Now to do a nail hole in the ceiling, I basically just go one way so it doesn't come back in my face. And I just leave it at the coarse grit. We're going to put some texture on here. If we're going to paint that, I just flip it over. Give her a 1-2. Now if you have to, clean your corners up. You just use your, I use my 3-inch knife, get in there. Now that's a really, really crisp corner. Looks good. Well, we got her done. Sanding's all done, just finished the cleanup. I just sweep up the excess and then I finish it off with my vacuum. And you know, years ago I used to try and tape things off. That's just a gong show. You end up ripping the plastic and making even a bigger mess. If you spill a little bit of mud on the carpet or something, you know, you just take your vacuum and give it a little scrape, it comes right off. So, cleanup is done. Ready for primer, and that's a big step. We put a lot of work into this so far, and this is when you start getting excited about your reno, because now you got to pick a color and you're getting close to being finished. So until then, thanks for watching. Have fun sanding.